Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to completely flip the script on how you think about learning a new language. You know, if you've ever spent hours agonizing over verb conjugations or staring blankly at vocabulary lists until your eyes cross, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, our ultimate goal is to shift your mindset. We're moving away from painfully and actively studying languages to naturally and effortlessly acquiring them. We're going to look at the actual science and the methodology behind why traditional methods just kind of fail us, and what you really should be doing instead.
So to kick things off, let's start with a question we've literally all wondered at some point. Why do toddlers learn languages so effortlessly while we adults struggle with endless stacks of flashcards? I mean, think about it. A 2-year-old doesn't use spaced repetition software, right? Their parents definitely aren't sitting them down with a whiteboard to explain that English is a subject-verb-object language, yet somehow they master complex grammar and vocabulary like absolute magic. How does that even happen? Well, it's not magic. It's a very specific process, and to understand it, we need to do a little experiment together. Listen to this phrase for a second. Timu o shokai shio. Timu wa neko janakute. Now, if you don't speak Japanese, how much did you learn from just hearing that out of context? I'm guessing probably 0%, right? Honestly, even if I repeated it 100 times or spoke really slowly, it wouldn't magically make sense. Your brain just has absolutely nothing to latch onto.
Now, watch what happens when we change the approach. We have a new phrase, ringo o taberu, but this time, imagine I'm holding an apple and taking a big bite out of it while I say it. Even without a dictionary, your brain naturally deduces the meaning. You don't have to actively study it. See, your brain is a massive pattern recognition machine. When visual context is added to a phrase, it just clicks. You just know it means eating an apple. This right here is the aha moment where language acquisition actually begins.
And this brings us to a massive figure in second language acquisition, scholar Stephen Krashen. He states a foundational truth for us. He says, we acquire language in one way and one way only, when we understand messages. We call this comprehensible input. This is the absolute foundation of everything we're talking about today. I mean, we've all tried grammar drills, we've tried the workbook exercises, but the only thing that actually counts is getting messages you understand. Anything that helps make that input comprehensible, like pictures or hand gestures or just situational context, that is what drives real acquisition.
And this brilliantly illustrates Krashen's core hypothesis, which is the stark difference between acquisition and learning. Think of it like this. Acquiring a language is like effortlessly getting a joke. When a horse walks into a bar and the bartender says, "Why the long face?" you don't consciously calculate the humor. Your subconscious just gets it and you laugh. Learning a language, on the other hand, that's like having someone explain to you exactly why that joke is funny. It totally ruins it. Having a teacher tell you the direct dictionary translation for the word persimmon is learning. But truly acquiring it, feeling what it means, that is a natural, intuitive, and entirely subconscious process.
Now, it's worth noting that these two concepts can occasionally work together. Let's say you're watching a Japanese show and you hear a phrase and you know the first part means "my cake," but you have no earthly idea what the last word means. You might guess it means steal, but later on you have a deliberate moment of textbook learning where you discover the root of that word actually means eat. Boom! Suddenly your brain connects the dots. You realize the word is in the past tense, so the phrase means, "You ate my cake, didn't you?" That tiny bit of deliberate learning triggers a massive subconscious acquisition aha moment where all those colloquial pieces suddenly click together perfectly.
But we really have to be careful with dictionaries. Which brings us to this staggering number, 30 minutes. That is how long it can take to read a single page of a foreign book if you stop to look up every single word in a dictionary. Think about the massive opportunity cost there. While you are hyper-focused on defining individual words, you are literally starving your brain of the necessary input volume it needs to recognize patterns. For that exact same amount of time, watching a television show or just reading without stopping could blast you with thousands more words, phrases, and grammar structures. To really understand why that volume matters so much, we need to look at engineering professor Barbara Oakley's concepts of how our brain actually operates. She breaks it down into the focused mode and the diffuse mode. The focused mode is when you are actively racking your brain, just straining to translate every single word. But the diffuse mode? That works in the background when you're totally relaxed. It's exactly why you get your best ideas in the shower. By stepping away from intense active study and just letting vast amounts of language wash over you, your brain's diffuse mode steps in. It starts flexibly piecing together meaning and patterns entirely in the background.
Now, what's really interesting about this next piece of data is how this builds into real-world results. There's this absolutely fascinating study in Barcelona that tracked Spanish speakers trying to learn English just through television. Watching English shows with their native Spanish subtitles resulted in a 0% improvement. Literally zero. Watching with no subtitles at all provided a 7% improvement. But watching the show in English with English subtitles provided a 17% improvement. The takeaway here is huge. If you rely on subtitles in your native tongue, your brain takes the path of least resistance and simply bypasses the foreign language altogether.
Now, if we are focusing entirely on soaking in all this media and input, you might be wondering, okay, well, when do I speak? Well, Stephen Krashen has a really surprising take that challenges conventional wisdom here. He says, talking is not practicing. Crazy, right? Krashen argues that speaking Spanish out loud in your car on the way to work will not actually improve your Spanish. You do not technically need to open your mouth to acquire a language. It's the input that builds the internal system, not the output.
If that sounds a little unbelievable, let's trace a fascinating medical case study from back in 1962. Researcher E. Lenneberg described a young boy who was born with congenital dysarthria. This condition rendered the boy completely unable to physically speak, like at all. However, when Lenneberg rigorously tested him, the boy was proven to understand spoken English perfectly. He had acquired the entire language flawlessly through comprehensible input alone, without ever speaking a single word in his life. The proof is right there.
With all that said, obviously, eventually you will want to talk. And pronunciation can be incredibly difficult because you are trying to make physical noises you've literally never made before. That's where a fantastic technique called shadowing comes in. Shadowing involves listening to audio of a native speaker and mimicking their precise pronunciation and intonation. You might just do 2 syllables or a couple of words at a time. It's an incredibly efficient technique for improving both your pronunciation and your natural phoneme recognition right from day one.
And recognizing those specific phonemes is absolutely critical because natural speech just runs together. Think about English. What are you doing? Almost always morphs into, what you doing? The exact same slurring happens in foreign languages, transforming standard textbook phrases into fast, unrecognizable sounds. A 2015 study out of Japan actually showed that shadowing significantly improves your ability to perceive these blended phonemes, because by physically mimicking the sounds yourself, your ears actually become better tuned to catching these fast colloquial slurs in real-world natural speech.
So the crucial point is this. Everything we've covered today boils down to 3 highly actionable, science-backed steps for you. Step 1, learn from context. Rely on visual and situational cues rather than dictionaries to deduce meaning. Step 2, maximize comprehensible input. You want to feed your brain a massive volume of media in your target language without translating it back to your mother tongue. And Step 3, shadow native speakers. Mimic their natural audio to train both your mouth and your ears for real-world speed.
Which leaves us with one final, incredibly important thought. Are you ready to finally ditch the flashcards and change how you consume foreign media today? The science is clear on this, you guys. Language isn't something you forcefully memorize. It's a living thing that you naturally absorb when you simply allow yourself to understand the message. So put down the dictionary, turn off those native subtitles, and just let your brain do what it was naturally built to do. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to start applying these acquisition techniques to your language journey right now. You've got this.